One night in September 2017, an IT genius, a man who had risen from rural poverty to become the owner of a tech company with a house in Beijing, sending hundreds of thousands of yuan home to his parents each year, quietly left behind a suicide note. In it he wrote, "My ex-wife has driven me to a dead end." A few hours later, he chose to leave this world, when his destined romance had only just begun less than half a year ago. In just 5 to 6 short months, from a single matchmaking website date, he had poured out his heart and all his money to please this woman. But was it true love, or just an elaborate setup? Join Crime Documentary Files as we explore today's case. In 2017, a user named Zhai Xinxin appeared on a high-end matchmaking website. According to her profile, she was born on January 1st, 1987 in Shandong, but grew up in Beijing. As the only daughter of a well-off family, Zhai Xinxin stood 5 feet 7 inches tall, had never been married, and earned over $2,800 per month. She held a master's degree in architecture from Beijing Jiaotong University, completed through a combined bachelor's-master's program. During her studies, she was also an exchange student at UCLA for 1 year, regarded as highly educated with an impressive background. In 2012, after completing her studies, she officially embarked on a civil service career. However, she didn't stop there. She also took the initiative to start a business by opening a coffee shop. Despite being born into a financially comfortable family where her parents could easily provide for everything, she was an incredibly proactive and enterprising young woman. Throughout her studies and work, she never relied on or depended on financial support from her family. She built her career through her own abilities, which was truly commendable. More remarkably, despite coming from a wealthy family, she carried no air of arrogance or superiority. She didn't indulge in a lavish lifestyle, didn't frequent nightclubs or noisy entertainment venues. Instead, in daily life, she was cheerful, lively, approachable, and very likable. Her bright personality, healthy lifestyle, along with her financial and career independence, made her an ideal partner for anyone. As a premium member of the matchmaking website, Xinxin was frequently arranged for direct meetings and matchmaking sessions. Su Xiangmao was born in 1980 in Fujian province, into a poor farming family in the countryside. He was one of the lucky children who managed to escape the village and overcome poverty through relentless dedication to his studies. With outstanding achievements, he was admitted to the graduate program at Beijing University of Posts and Telecommunications. Throughout his university years, thanks to consistently top academic performance, he regularly received various scholarships from the school and other organizations. Not stopping there, with solid professional knowledge, he could also take on technical projects from outside to earn extra income, covering tuition and living expenses. After graduating with his master's degree, he worked as an engineer at several companies for a few years. During this time, he gradually discovered he had a special talent for programming and coding. This ability opened up a new career path for him. By 2012, with the vision and determination of a young entrepreneur, he boldly established WePhone Technology Company in Beijing. The company's flagship product was the WePhone app, an innovative mobile application that allowed users to send text messages and make phone calls over the internet completely free, significantly reducing telecommunications costs. The app quickly attracted a large user base and became a successful market product. Thanks to WePhone, he earned his first fortune, enabling him to buy a house in Beijing, where real estate is notoriously expensive. Each year, he sent home about $28,000 to support his aging parents in the countryside. Not only that, he also covered all educational expenses for his siblings. Su Xiangmao's story truly exemplified the classic rags to riches narrative. Despite his brilliant career success, Xiangmao still hadn't found a suitable girlfriend. In terms of appearance, his height was only about 5 feet 5 inches, quite modest by general standards. However, what he could be confident about was that his financial situation had reached a fairly good level, and to a certain extent, this financial factor could completely compensate for the physical limitations he faced. His family and relatives had introduced him to various young women many times. These women all seemed very satisfied and willing to continue developing the relationship. But despite having many such opportunities, Xiang Mao still couldn't successfully pair up with anyone. The reason was that he had quite specific criteria for his future life partner. The first and most important thing in his eyes was that the woman must have a gentle, caring personality and know how to take care of the family. At the same time, she must also be filial to parents and kind to everyone around her. These were the traditional qualities he valued most highly. Additionally, Xiang Mao had another requirement. Ideally, the woman should have Beijing household registration, hukou. If his wife had Beijing hukou, their children would automatically enjoy this benefit in the future, able to attend good public schools in Beijing. This way, they wouldn't have to worry about their children's education. Because of these specific criteria and the difficulty of finding someone who met all requirements, Xiang Mao decided to register and become a VIP member of the matchmaking website, hoping that with professional help from marriage consultants, he would soon find his destined woman. In March 2017, through the matchmaking website's arrangement, Xiang Mao met Xinxin, a single woman, at the website's office. The first meeting was quite awkward. They only exchanged a few simple words before trading phone numbers. Surprisingly, the next day, Xinxin proactively invited Xiang Mao to dinner and a movie. This date was much more comfortable, and their conversation flowed more naturally. They discovered something interesting. Their lunar calendar birthdays fell on the exact same day. Xinxin shared about her first love in college, a beautiful romance that couldn't continue due to geographical distance after graduation. The date ended in a pleasant atmosphere, with both feeling attracted to each other. Later, when he learned that Xinxin's family lived in a luxurious villa, Xiang Mao was both surprised and felt pressure. Wanting to prove himself worthy of her, he didn't hesitate to assert that he also had the ability to buy a villa, even showing Xinxin his stock and investment accounts as proof of his financial situation. On April 1, 2017, Xinxin took the initiative to confess her feelings, revealing that she had fallen in love with Xiang Mao at first sight. Xiang Mao also reciprocated and emotionally called it a gift from heaven. Xinxin also confided that the moment she saw him, she immediately thought about marriage and having children with him. And so, the two officially became lovers. Just 2 weeks after meeting, Xiang Mao shocked everyone by giving his girlfriend an extravagant gift, a Tesla worth $140,000. From then on, expensive gifts kept appearing, as if material things were trivial. Designer bags, fashionable accessories, and luxurious jewelry were successively given. Diamond rings, earrings, necklaces, each worth tens of thousands of dollars. The two were immersed in sweet emotions, traveling everywhere together, enjoying life like a dream couple. Everything unfolded like a fairy tale, too fast, too beautiful, and seemingly too perfect. On April 30th, 2017, Xiang Mao took his girlfriend home to Fujian to meet his family. During those days there, Xinxin appeared very skillful, proactively helping with housework, and when going out, she affectionately linked arms with his mother, making everyone in the house extremely fond of her. Xiang Mao's parents and siblings loved her so much that each person gave her $140 in red envelopes, totaling $980. After leaving Fujian, instead of returning, they went directly to Hainan. In Hainan, Xinxin displayed a strangely familiar knowledge, as if every corner there was within her understanding. Xiang Mao later learned that she had actually worked there before. On their second day in Hainan, Xinxin suggested Xiang Mao buy a house worth $460,000. The entire process, from selection to paperwork to signing, was all arranged by Xinxin herself, and most notably, she put her own name on the purchase confirmation. At that time, their relationship had reached its most passionate stage. Though Xiang Mao felt somewhat hesitant, he couldn't bear to object for fear of hurting their feelings. He consoled himself that she had promised to marry and have children with him, so spending this large amount was no different from investing in their shared future. And just like that, everything happened incredibly fast. By this point, they had only known each other for 40 short days. During their passionate romance, Xiang Mao was almost completely immersed in happiness. He happily introduced Xinxin to friends, dined and gathered with them, even brought her to his company for a tour, introducing her as his future life partner. Everything seemed natural and close. However, thinking back, he realized something strange. From beginning to end, he had never met any of Xinxin's friends, nor did he ever really know where she worked. The more contact they had, the more Xiang Mao began to discover contradictions in her words. For instance, Xinxin had previously said they shared the same lunar birthday, but later he learned this was completely fabricated. Not only that, even her birth year wasn't real. She said she was born in 1987, but it was actually 1986. These small lies began to make Xiang Mao feel uneasy. Gradually, he realized that he might not truly understand who Xinxin was. She seemed to be deliberately hiding many things. He discovered she had 2 different WeChat accounts, sometimes using one, other times the other, and each account had different relationships. Xinxin often explained that her work involved the performing arts field, so she had to maintain many different communication channels. She said she had previously played some minor roles in web films and was occasionally invited to perform at events. Although gradually realizing there were quite a few differences between his girlfriend's image and his initial impression, Xiang Mao firmly maintained his intention to marry Xinxin. In his heart, his feelings for her remained deep, and he believed that as long as they were sincere, they could overcome anything. However, the night before they planned to register their marriage, something unexpected happened. That evening, Xinxin suddenly seemed different, her eyes somewhat confused. She told Xiang Mao she had something important to confess. Early the next morning, on June 1st, 2017, when both had just woken up, Xinxin suddenly said that the night before she had dreamed a strange dream. In it, she had gone to the Civil Affairs Bureau to register for marriage, but on that very day, she filed for divorce. Hearing this, Xiang Mao was confused, not understanding what was happening. He looked at her in surprise, feeling like the person before him was trying to say something implicit. He gently reassured her, telling her to speak directly without beating around the bush. After a moment of silence, Xinxin finally sighed and confessed the truth. She had registered for marriage once in the past. The man's name was Litigation. According to her account, that marriage wasn't genuine, but rather an arranged setup with a purpose. Litigation wanted to take advantage of her Beijing hukou to facilitate buying a house, so he had discussed with her about a fake marriage. She said there were no feelings between them, just a business cooperation, and they had previously invested in real estate together, earning considerable profits. After Litigation completed the house purchase, they quickly went to the Civil Affairs Bureau to file for divorce, ending their paper relationship. Faced with the doubts in his heart, Xiang Mao decided to get to the bottom of things. He chose to be straightforward, gently telling Xinxin, "This is actually very easy to resolve. Now you just need to call Litigation, confirm things with each other a bit, no big deal." However, this seemingly simple statement made Xinxin react unusually. She immediately appeared flustered and replied that she and Litigation had some conflicts later and had taken each other to court, so they couldn't contact each other privately anymore. The reason sounded plausible, but lacked conviction. The vague feeling in Xiang Mao's heart became increasingly clear. Not stopping there, he continued to gently probe with a few more questions to understand the situation, but Xinxin's attitude suddenly changed. She became irritable, cutting him off. "Can you stop asking so many questions?" The atmosphere between them suddenly became tense and heavy. Feeling everything was happening too suddenly, Xiang Mao tried to stay calm. He said the amount of information he had just received was really too much. He needed time to think and sort everything out. However, these words seemed to make Xinxin even more upset. She couldn't hide her anger, quickly packed her things, all her clothes and bags, into Xiang Mao's car, then drove off, returning to her own home without another word. After a restless night of thinking, Xiang Mao tried to reassure himself. He remembered that family members all loved and accepted Xinxin, seeing her as their future daughter-in-law. He himself was no longer young and didn't want to lose what seemed like a blossoming romance over a few misunderstandings. The next morning, Xiang Mao proactively contacted Xinxin. He said to her sincerely, "We've chosen each other, so we should trust each other. No matter what happens, I believe that as long as we're both heading in the same direction, all misunderstandings can be resolved. How about, let's go register for marriage? After talking, the atmosphere gradually eased. Finally, they agreed to officially register for marriage on June 6th. However, looking back, many abnormalities appeared from here. If truly serious about marriage and genuinely loving the other person, why would one wait until right before the marriage registration date to reveal a previous marriage history? This action showed that from the beginning, Xinxin never intended to truly marry Xiangmao. Perhaps she only planned to maintain a convenient relationship, but didn't expect things to progress so far that retreat became difficult. When everything reached the final threshold, she chose a laissez-faire attitude. If it works out, go with it. If not, consider it over. After all, the car, luxury items, expensive gifts, she already had them all. And if things came to an end, she could simply turn and walk away, as light as if there had never been any bonds, leaving Xiangmao's life without losing anything. Sadly, Xiangmao's sincerity and persistence were misplaced. Behind Xinxin's soft appearance and sweet words was a meticulously calculated script. Because Xinxin had a previous marriage, according to regulations, to register marriage with Xiangmao, she had to bring the court's divorce mediation document to the police station to process changing her household registration status from unmarried to divorced. Only after completing this step could they officially register for marriage. On the evening of June 5th, just one day before their planned marriage registration, Xiangmao and Xinxin sat talking. During the conversation, he asked to see the divorce mediation document between her and Li Tiejun, but Xinxin immediately appeared displeased. She coldly replied that it was private and couldn't be casually shown to others. Then, as if prepared, she set a bizarre condition. If you want to see it, you must give me $125,000. Don't expect to see it, and if you can't see it, we break up. This statement stunned Xiangmao, but in his fear of losing the person he loved, he no longer had enough rationality to judge. That night he tried to persuade and explain, but Xinxin maintained a firm attitude, not yielding. Finally, because he was too desperate and believed that if they could just get through this, they could be together completely, Xiangmao had to transfer $125,000 to Xinxin in 3 installments. On June 6th, the day they planned to register for marriage, they stopped by the court to get the divorce mediation document, a mandatory procedure for Xinxin. She said she would go in alone, so she stepped inside while Xiangmao waited outside. About half an hour later, Xinxin came out holding 2 mediation documents. At this point, Xiangmao noticed something very strange. The person listed in the documents wasn't Li Tijun, as she had previously claimed, but rather a man named Li Lei. According to the content recorded, the marriage date was January 17th, 2011, and the divorce date was April 1st, no year specified. The mediation document also clearly stated that the husband had to compensate the wife $28,000. This document was completely different from what Xinxin had told him, leaving Xiangmao confused and suspicious. After obtaining the divorce mediation document, Xinxin went to the police station to process changing her marital status in her household registration from unmarried to divorced. Xiangmao reviewed the documents and found that the information was completely different from what Xinxin had previously said. Feeling uneasy, he thought that registering for marriage at this time was too hasty, so he temporarily wanted to pause and think more. But this intention made Xinxin angry. She appeared annoyed, thinking he lacked decisiveness, and said this too late. If she had known earlier, she could have asked an acquaintance to erase the marital status from her records, avoiding trouble. Now that everything was done, she felt betrayed and couldn't control her anger. In her rage, she even raised her hand and hit Xiangmao on the head, then left, leaving behind a heavy and gloomy atmosphere. Being hit, Xiangmao didn't get angry. On the contrary, he felt regretful, thinking he had been too slow and didn't know how to behave, causing her pain. That night, he tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Finally, he couldn't hold back and proactively contacted Xinxin again, hoping for a chance to reconcile. But the response he received was cold and distant. Xinxin's attitude made Xiang Mao even more desperate. In an effort to salvage the relationship, he wrote a long apology letter expressing his feelings and hoping she would calm down. Then, he went near her house, hoping to meet face to face to apologize directly, but was still rejected. When all efforts went unanswered, Xiang Mao still didn't give up. He consoled himself that the past 2 months were just a wrong start and that he could begin again from scratch. With this thought, he was determined to pursue her once more until he could make her accept his feelings. After Xiang Mao expressed his desire to start over, Xinxin set a condition. If he truly wanted to pursue her, he must transfer $7,000 to her every day until she agreed to marry. She also said this money belonged to them anyway. Trusting and bound by emotions, Xiang Mao complied, continuously transferring money for 2 days. Combined with the previous $51,000 to change her marital status, the total reached $65,000. After that, Xinxin seemed satisfied and agreed to register for marriage the next day. But because the wound on his face hadn't healed, Xiang Mao asked to postpone for 2 days. Just this alone made Xinxin furious, saying he was deceitful and sarcastically remarking that each time like this had to be paid for with money. From beginning to end, it was clear Xinxin was never sincere. She spoke harshly, using money to control every conflict. Just for the matter of marriage registration, Xiang Mao had already lost $191,000 for a relationship lasting a mere 70 days. On the morning of June 7th, Xiang Mao told himself everything was fine. The wound on his face had reduced in swelling. He still loved Xinxin and hoped to soon build their own home. After so many storms, misunderstandings, and monetary transactions, he finally held the marriage registration certificate in his hands. In his heart rose the belief that everything he had given was worth it. But he didn't know this was only the beginning of tragedy, and what awaited ahead was far more cruel. After registration, they began preparing for the wedding. Xiang Mao had been a member of the matchmaking website and had met a few people before. When Xinxin discovered he was still in contact with one of the people he had dated and hadn't yet notified her that he was married, she immediately became furious. Feeling insulted, she thought Xiang Mao was a terrible person, heartless and lacking character. Just 10 days after marriage, Xinxin proposed divorce. As the conflict escalated, Xiang Mao even met with Xinxin's parents to mediate, but she remained cold and unwilling to calm down. On June 18th, Xiang Mao swore that in his heart there was only Xinxin. To prove it, he transferred $7,000 up front, promising to send another $28,000 the next day. But Xinxin immediately demanded $143,000 be transferred that very next day. And taking advantage of Xiang Mao's regret and guilt, she forced him to write a commitment. If one day he initiated divorce, he would have to compensate $715,000, simultaneously pay off all the debt for the house in Sanya, and transfer full ownership to her. If they had children in the future, he would also have to buy an additional 3-bedroom apartment. After the commitment was written, the argument temporarily ceased, but the conflicts between them seemed never to stop. As long as something small made Xinxin unhappy, she would again suggest breaking up. The reasons always changed. Xiang Mao wasn't sincere, didn't understand her, didn't value her, was riding a donkey while searching for a horse, or still had someone else in his heart. Such accusations appeared continuously in conversations between them, repetitive, exhausting, and without escape. Whenever conflicts arose, Xinxin would often leave, causing them to live separately from time to time. In daily life, she continuously boasted about her wealthy family and spacious home, while expressing her desire for Xiang Mao to switch to a larger apartment in Beijing. She also suggested he should provide $7,000 monthly, preferably letting her manage all finances. These words and actions gradually revealed Xinxin as materialistic and calculating. Xiang Mao began to realize this, feeling her character was problematic, yet still found it difficult to break away. He understood he had already invested too much money and effort to get that marriage certificate, and if they divorced now, everything he invested would become a heavy loss, and so they lived in a string of days full of conflict and clinging. Xinxin continuously criticized, mocked, and belittled Xiang Mao with words, making the planned wedding perpetually unable to happen. From June 23rd, she cut off contact, and no matter how many messages Xiang Mao sent, he received no response. After many attempts, they finally spoke again, but Xinxin's words still only revolved around money, material things, and demands. This made Xiang Mao worried, and once again doubt this unstable relationship. Faced with Xiang Mao's doubts, Xinxin immediately reacted violently. She believed she never relied on or came to him for money. According to her, before they met, her personal assets had reached $2.8 million, so she lacked nothing. If it was really for money, she said, there was no need to marry someone like Xiang Mao, because there were many better candidates on the matchmaking website. She insisted the fault was Xiang Mao's, and the money he had transferred was all voluntary, nobody forced him. Moreover, she even seemed indignant when emphasizing that she never complained about him not having Beijing hukou and was willing to leave her villa to live with him, something Xiang Mao should be grateful for, according to her. Not stopping there, Xinxin began to redirect her attacks. She questioned Xiang Mao sending $28,000 annually to his parents, saying he spent money without planning and didn't need to consult her. She also declared she had the right to live wherever she wanted freely, without his control. Xinxin's words were full of contempt when comparing that at age 40, men with annual incomes of $1.4 million were normal, while Xiang Mao, despite having savings, was still just like someone struggling in a poor county. She continued to mock and belittle him, saying he was ungrateful, insensitive. Even her family had a bad impression of him. A person who was both not bright and naive, and didn't have the ability to discuss finances. Finally, she concluded that this marriage no longer had meaning, only made her tired, and proposed divorce. At the same time, during a health checkup, Xiang Mao was found to have hepatitis B. This result made Xinxin show even more disgust and avoidance, pushing the already cracked relationship to the brink of complete collapse. In the following days, Xiang Mao still continuously tried to contact her, hoping to salvage the relationship. However, what answered him were only continuous insults and contempt. Xinxin continuously criticized him as a nouveau riche from the countryside with a wealthy mentality. Apart from making money every day, he had no other value. She criticized his mediocre appearance, clumsy speech, cramped house, even carrying an infectious disease. According to her, if Xiang Mao truly wanted to live better, there was only one way: buy a new villa immediately. She said she was used to luxurious space and couldn't stand living in a high-rise building. If he couldn't meet this, she was ready to end the marriage. Not stopping there, Xinxin also sent Xiang Mao a photo of a villa fire scene in Hangzhou, along with venomous implications that living in high floors was very dangerous, in case something happens. After that, she continuously urged him to buy a villa urgently, making it a condition to continue the relationship. However, economic reality made Xiang Mao unable to bear another villa. He began to realize the complete change in the person who once said love at first sight and want to have children with you. Day by day, Xinxin's feelings increasingly transformed into material demands, and each conflict was pushed toward the same conclusion: threatening divorce. Xiang Mao finally felt exhausted and accepted the divorce proposal. But this quickly escalated into a legal dispute. Xinxin found a lawyer to demand a lawsuit, not only wanting to implement the compensation clause in the previous commitment, but also wanting to receive additional assets. Xiang Mao argued that it was Xinxin who proactively proposed divorce, that he had transferred nearly $715,000 to her during this time, and that the commitment was personal and had no legal effect because it violated certain regulations related to voluntary marriage. Xinxin didn't accept this reasoning, insisting on the full $715,000 as written in the commitment and declaring she would sue to the end. At the same time, Xinxin made accusations targeting Xiang Mao's company, threatening to report tax evasion that could lead to severe penalties for him. Although Xiang Mao insisted the company was registered overseas and had paid taxes, Xinxin still didn't believe and escalated the threat. If he didn't hand over all the cash, she would report to the authorities, simultaneously declaring that $715,000 wasn't enough to resolve the matter. On July 7, 2017, Xinxin brought her mother to Xiang Mao's house, but the meeting quickly turned into a fierce argument. Xinxin once again acted violently, with mother and daughter participating in the tussle, creating a tense atmosphere. After the commotion, Xinxin's side immediately demanded compensation up to $7.15 million. A few days after the argument, Xiang Mao withdrew from the house, temporarily staying at a hotel and cutting off contact with Xinxin. Sometime later, he read her status update, boasting about new joy in the house, information that made him more confused and hurt. When trying to reconnect, Xiang Mao received a call to meet in which appeared the voice of a relative of Xinxin's, clearly powerful with a threatening tone. This person demanded compensation money, threatening to use many measures to create pressure, from attacking the company's reputation online, requesting product removal, to pursuing income recovery, even coming to find him at night. The relative was said to be Xinxin's uncle, and their attitude helped transform the emotional dispute into major mental and legal pressure on Xiang Mao. Xinxin began using relatives to threaten Xiang Mao. She said now that relatives were involved, things weren't easy to resolve anymore. She also mentioned that the phone app Xiang Mao developed had some parts not entirely legal, then used this as an excuse to pressure him. She demanded he compensate $1.43 million and hand over the house in Sanya, otherwise her family would take action, causing him major trouble. Xiang Mao knew well his business had some sensitive areas, and if investigated, he could face real trouble. He understood this was the weakness Xinxin was holding. But his financial situation at that time was also very difficult. Stocks had depreciated, cash wasn't much, so he could only pay $944,000. He proposed they both compromise and end it there. However, Xinxin didn't agree, even saying he could mortgage his house to get enough money. On July 16th, after many days of threats and mental collapse, Xiang Mao had to sign a divorce agreement very disadvantageous to himself. In it, he had to pay $1.43 million, divided into 2 times. First give $944,000, then after going to the Civil Affairs Bureau to complete divorce procedures, he would add the remaining $486,000. The day he signed the agreement, a relative accompanied Xinxin, saying if Xiang Mao didn't sign that day, they would report to the police to file a case. Too frightened, he was forced to sign on July 18, 2017, exactly 40 days after registering for marriage. Xiang Mao and Xinxin officially signed the divorce agreement. According to the agreement, Xiang Mao transferred ownership of the house in Sanya to Xinxin and paid $944,000 up front. Xinxin also went to Hainan to inquire about property transfer procedures. At this point, Xiang Mao only hoped she would keep her promise, as he himself was nearly bankrupt. He hoped she would stop and not report further, considering it as giving him a way to live. For Xiang Mao, his career was the entire meaning of life. He had devoted all his energy to work, considering the company and products he developed as important as life itself. He could bear losing money and affection, but as long as his career hadn't collapsed, he still had faith in the future. A month after the divorce, Xiang Mao began processing a mortgage on his house, preparing to pay the remaining $486,000 according to the agreement. However, when his family learned the details of the divorce, they immediately came from the countryside to Beijing, advising him to report to the police. At first, Xiang Mao was extremely hesitant and afraid. He worried that Xinxin's uncle, a person with authority, would cause difficulties if he dared report. But from an outsider's perspective, both family and lawyers clearly saw the nature of the matter. Xinxin was not only greedy, but also had sophisticated calculations, continuously boasting about money and family power. Finally, everyone advised that only reporting to the police could clarify the truth. During this time, Xinxin continuously urged Xiang Mao to pay the remaining amount, and constantly threatened to report his company as operating illegally if he didn't pay. She sent threatening messages back and forth, sometimes screenshots of report calls, other times screenshots of the app he developed as evidence. Although advised by family and lawyers to temporarily postpone, Xiang Mao still had to increase borrowing to worry about the money, fearing his career could collapse at any moment. The pressure on him was very great, but at that time he still believed Xinxin's words and didn't suspect her. Meanwhile, he went to the bank to print all transfer statements, took complete screenshots of all chat conversations, and arranged all evidence from when they first met until everything ended, compiling it into a complete dossier. On September 6, 2017, Xinxin said that when searching for her name online, behind her name appeared the word divorce, so she suspected Xiang Mao had deliberately done this. She appeared cold, saying he didn't need to hide because she didn't care. Xiang Mao quickly denied. Xinxin then emphasized that as long as he properly fulfilled the agreement, she wouldn't make a big deal, then again used the tax issue to threaten, saying as long as he paid, she would stay silent. Simple as that. Xiang Mao replied that if truly reported, he would publicly reveal the entire truth, clearly explaining the cause and result for everyone to judge. Hearing this, Xinxin immediately issued an ultimatum, demanding he must pay before September 18th, otherwise she would sue in court. On the surface, Xiang Mao still maintained a calm voice, but in his heart he was exhausted from the continuous threats. The accumulated pressure made his spirit increasingly deteriorate. At 2 a.m., Xinxin sent him another message, a screenshot from the app Xiang Mao developed. In it, there was a pop-up window saying Xinxin was an evil woman, along with her personal information, simultaneously declaring that the man was harmed by her to death and the company was about to go bankrupt. After Xiang Mao explained that displaying information on the app was just for testing and he had removed it, the incident still drove Xinxin mad. She reacted strongly, saying the damage was already too great. The information had spread to over 20 million users. Her friends were calling and messaging non-stop with screenshots and comments. Xinxin accused his mother of also having to bear the consequences, while loudly threatening all sorts of things, from insults to threats of coming to his house to physically deal with him, showing her anger and desperation. Not long after, around 3 a.m., Xiang Mao's personal information was widely distributed on a forum called Tranam, accusing him of severe hepatitis B, deceit in relationships, and his company of evading taxes for many years totaling tens of millions of dollars. The content released had enough details for people to easily guess the source of the poster. Xinxin's act of spreading defamatory information for revenge revealed many things. She apparently didn't have real power behind her, but only pretended to have powerful relatives to intimidate. The boasts about big connections, wide relationships, were very likely just tactics to create pressure. Immediately after the defamatory post appeared, Xiang Mao responded with a long post, stating he had been seriously hurt by his ex-wife, publicly revealing secrets between them and clearly saying the company's capital chain had broken, making him desperate. That night, after dozens of conversations lasting many hours, early in the morning he left home, went to the rooftop, and chose to end it all. His messages and posts stopped from that moment. At first, Xinxin didn't realize her actions had pushed the other person to the edge. The resentment and revenge bit by bit had accumulated in Xiang Mao's heart until he collapsed. When she learned, Xinxin's attitude changed from arrogance to fear and regret. She began sending many pleading messages, begging him to remove online content with promises she wouldn't continue pursuing. She also claimed she had never before reported to tax authorities or police, that now her phone was blowing up with calls, her WeChat full of pressure, and asked him to remove the post to give her peace. When Xiang Mao's suicide note was publicly posted online, his app users were in an uproar, and Xinxin's phone and social media accounts were immediately attacked fiercely. Faced with the violent backlash, Xinxin began to lower her tone, saying her father had a myocardial infarction requiring emergency care, begging Xiang Mao to remove the posts, saying he had caused her family to fall apart. She promised she wouldn't pursue or report anything further, just wanted him to delete all that information, considering everything over. 2 days later, Xinxin learned for certain that Xiang Mao had passed away. They had known each other less than half a year, but he had spent over $1.86 million on her, and ultimately traded it with his own life. After the incident, tax and commercial authorities began investigating Xiang Mao's company. Results showed no signs of tax evasion. All activities were legal. However, many people still wondered, if there were no violations, why did just one threat of reporting to police make him panic so much? Was there something hidden behind the business activities that only he knew? Whatever the answer, everyone agreed on one thing. Xiang Mao's death was too unjust and undeserved. Xiang Mao's family tried to contact Xinxin and her relatives, but only received absolute silence, messages not answered, phone calls not picked up. Finally, they had to report to police, accusing Xinxin of fraud and extortion. However, because there wasn't enough criminal evidence, the case wasn't prosecuted, only transferred toward civil litigation, demanding Xinxin return all the money Xiang Mao had transferred to her. After Xiang Mao's death, Xinxin issued an official response. She said the Tesla was a gift he voluntarily gave, and the large asset commitment was because Xiang Mao had been violent toward her, so he wrote it to compensate. Regarding the divorce agreement with compensation money and subsequent threats, she said it was just a momentary angry action, purely from arguing. On July 12, 2018, the civil lawsuit officially opened for trial. Both sides submitted evidence, but lawyers discovered Xinxin had deleted many chat messages. The judge requested sealing the phone as evidence, but Xinxin continuously made excuses to refuse. The complaint was rejected by the court. Xinxin's lawyer also demanded dividing company assets because during the 41 days of marriage there was still revenue, infuriating the Su family. 2 years later, on December 21, 2020, the first trial at Beijing's Chaoyang court took place with many of Xiang Mao's relatives in attendance. Xinxin was absent. After 6.5 hours of trial, the court hadn't issued a verdict, and to this day there's still no result. Legally, was the money Xiang Mao gave Xinxin voluntary gifts or coerced? It still needs a final judgment to determine. According to the Su family's lawyer, after the civil suit, they will proceed with criminal litigation because they have obtained important evidence. In chat messages with friends, Xinxin frankly wrote, "I plan to get more money than divorce. I can't live a lifetime with someone like that. Either I divorce or find a younger boyfriend. Find someone young, I'll spend the money. That man born in the 80s isn't that young anymore. I've already calculated the path ahead." Many chat excerpts showed this marriage was never based on feelings. The phrase "love at first sight" was just a script staged from the beginning. The fraudulent purpose was clear. People continuously came forward reporting similar tactics on that same matchmaking website. The exact same script: identify wealthy targets, ask to visit their home, confess feelings directly if satisfied, invite trips to Sanya or the Maldives, then disappear in feigned anger to demand material compensation. Because they had met both parents, the men thought everything was sincere. She was also cultivating multiple people simultaneously, multiple lines in parallel. Xinxin had shown photos traveling with other men on Weibo, along with flash marriages lasting a few months with the same script. If all followed the pattern of meeting parents, perhaps those were just fake parents or accomplice criminals. Media verified the identity of her police captain third uncle. Not found. The research institute she claimed to work for also confirmed there was no employee named Xinxin. Everything was lies. The case between Xiang Mao and Xinxin ended in tragedy, leaving a painful lesson about love, trust, and human value in modern society. Feelings built on a foundation of money, control, and deceit will sooner or later lead to harm. When trust is exploited, love becomes a tool of manipulation, and people are pushed to desperation. The biggest lesson from this case isn't just a warning about fake relationships and rushed love, but also a reminder to everyone. Don't let emotions cloud reason. Don't let money become the measure of love. And when harm occurs, seek the law, reason, and help from loved ones, instead of bearing the despair alone. And that's today's case. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.